What do you make of the rhetoric coming from both sides today?
Yeah, it's good cop, bad cop on both sides. It seems we saw that there were additional sanctions put on Iran's construction sector just yesterday, and yet today we're hearing positive news, but few details on what the positive news is really. And I think it comes down to one final factor, which is the enrichment factor. Iran wants to continue to enrich uranium, whereby the United States says that their red line is enriching uranium. And that's kind of what it just comes down to.
Well, so how much does the timeline in regard to these negotiations matter here, Natasha? The longer they drag out, is that advantage U.S. or advantage Iran as it can kind of reconstitute itself from the losses it suffered, not just directly, but through its proxies in recent months?
Yeah, it really depends on how impatient President Trump gets and his ally Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu in particular. Traditionally speaking, time is usually on Iran's side. They like negotiations. They like a step-for-step process because it gives them time to recalibrate on the ground in the region, but as well as with their nuclear program as well. And so they like just being on the brink of potentially a nuclear program, a weaponized nuclear program, but not actually getting there. So the big question is how far Trump is willing to go. Now, the former JCPOA, or nuclear talks that were established with an agreement under the Obama administration, took about 18 months to actually sign. So, I mean, this could take a very long time. So it really depends on the Trump administration.
Iran sent a letter to the Secretary General of the UN and the Director General of the UN's nuclear watchdog promising retaliation if Israel makes good on reports that it will attack Iran's nuclear facilities. In that letter, Natasha, it says the U.S. government will also be a party and have legal responsibility in the case of a strike. Are we to believe that Iran would strike U.S. military targets in the Middle East? Is that the suggestion?
Well, it wouldn't be unprecedented. I mean, Iran has, through its proxies, attacked U.S. bases in the region that are sort of softer targets, for example, in Iraq and Syria. And so that could potentially happen again. It would make things very awkward, of course, for the Iraqi government right now. But that could definitely potentially happen. And equally with other Iranian proxies in the region, like the Houthis, this could potentially happen as well. So, I mean, they could make good on these threats, but keep in mind that Iran is severely weakened now after, a year of devastating attacks by Israel on Iran itself and Hezbollah, its proxy. So they are in a far weaker position than they were just 2 years ago.
Natasha, I'd like to ask you about news we just got confirmed from the Treasury Department after President Trump in the Middle East last week said the U.S. would be lifting sanctions on Syria. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent just saying on X, as he promised, the Treasury Department and State Department are implementing authorizations to encourage new investment into Syria. He says today's actions will hopefully put the country on a path to a bright, prosperous and stable future. Even in the absence of sanctions, Natasha, how difficult will it be for that path to be stayed on?
It's going to be enormously difficult. I mean, as President Trump mentioned, the cessation of sanctions will give Syria a chance, but it will take some time for those investments to kind of trickle down to citizens within Syria that are about 90% of them under the poverty line right now. But we've already seen some investments come through, some MOUs being signed. But the big question, I think, for me, and I think this is part of the reason that President Trump went forward with this decision, is to really keep other nefarious actors out of Syria. If Syria had stayed sanctioned, it would have to rely on Russia, for example, which it was relying on prior to this announcement, and potentially Iranian actors and others could have a foray back into the economy there. If they were really desperate. So I think that this is a very strategic move. It's a positive move, but it's certainly just one step to Syria's longer recovery.